Support for I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere comes from MX Publishing, with the largest catalog of new Sherlock Holmes books in the world. New novels, biographies, graphic novels, and short story collections about Sherlock Holmes. Find them at mxpublishing.com.
And listeners like you who support us on Patreon or Substack, sign up for exclusive benefits at patreon.com/IHearOfSherlock or IHearOfSherlock.substack.com.
I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere, episode 321, Sherlock Holmes Into the Fire.
I hear of Sherlock everywhere since you became stronger.
In a world where it's always 1895, it's I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere, a podcast for devotees of Mr. Sherlock Holmes, the world's first unofficial consulting detective.
I've heard of you before. You're Holmes the meddler, Holmes the busybody, Holmes the Scotland Yard Jack in office.
The game's afoot as we interview authors, editors, creators, and other prominent Sherlockians on various aspects of the great detective in popular culture.
As we go to press, sensational developments have been reported.
So join your hosts, Scott Monty and Bert Wolder, as they talk about what's new in the world of Sherlock Holmes.
You couldn't have come at a better time!
I'm Bill Curtis. This is I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere. Now, here are your hosts, Scott Monty and Bert Wolder.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bill Curtis. This is I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere, the first podcast for Sherlock Holmes devotees where it's always 1895. I'm Scott Monty.
I'm Bert Wolder.
And Bert, you look like you're right out of the fire. A little charred around the edges there.
Thanks very much. You know, it takes a long time to put this sort of gray charcoal smear under my eyes. I'm glad you appreciate it.
You need a good makeup artist.
I do. But what's the name of the guy who did all the great makeup on the Universal Studios? He's long, Karloff and Frankenstein.
Yeah, that's, well.
Bill Westmore? Did Bill Westmore do all that?
Sure.
He's long gone.
Whatever you say.
I just need a trowel and some latex around my face, and I'm fine.
Well, and the money we can save on the hair department is amazing. That's the thing.
Oh, I've already eliminated that.
Well, we've got a great interview ahead for you today. We're going to be talking with Margie Deck, author of Sherlock Holmes Into the Fire. It's a fascinating combination of Sherlock Holmes stories and Conan Doyle's Round the Fire stories. How that actually came about and how Margie oversaw the project will be the subject of our chat. In addition, upcoming, just right after these brief announcements, we've got events from the second half of December from the Sherlockian calendar to talk to you about. That's in the Learned Societies. Madeline Quinones is back with another of her entries in A Chance of Listening. We are about to wrap up that series with her. You'll want to hear this one. This is a doozy. And, of course, we have the canonical couplet, where we give you 2 lines of poetry and ask you to identify the story. And if you are among all the winners, you'll have a chance to receive a prize. And in this case, our prize is going to be a copy of Margie's book. So stay tuned for that. Meanwhile, just wanted to remind you that you can support the show in a number of ways, certainly by going to Patreon or to Substack. We have the links in the show notes to both of those places, patreon.com/IHearOfSherlock and IHearOfSherlock.substack.com. Your financial support means that we get to keep producing the show. It allows us to book guests, get prizes, pay for the hosting, everything that goes into putting together a quality show like you are accustomed to. And you get to listen to the show ad-free on either of those platforms. Occasionally, we do have bonus material, so you'll get that as well. But all of that is available, as well as discussion with other like-minded Sherlockians on those platforms. So check those out, and we do appreciate your support. If you can't support us financially, the best thing you can do is support us by sharing the show, either the whole show or episodes or clips, if you can, with other people that matter to you. The more the merrier here at I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere. Got some great guests and episodes planned for the remainder of this year, so make sure you tell the rest of the world. We march into the hallowed halls of those learned societies, the Sherlockian groups that are meeting all across the country and in some cases across the world on a regular basis. This is a service provided by Ron Fish. It's found at SherlockianCalendar.com. Ron's email address is there on the website. So if you have an event that you are hosting or your group is hosting, let Ron know about it so he can put it into the calendar. It's going to be experiencing some changes in the upcoming months. You'll want to stay tuned for that. But we think this is a valuable resource that all Sherlockians should know about, and one that we use to help inform you 2 weeks at a time what's going on out there. And now we turn our attention to the second half of December of 2025. Where do we find ourselves, Bert?
We find ourselves on December 16th. The Sherlock Holmes Society of the Cape Fear is having a virtual meeting, and you can contact Tom Campbell. They have a website at Sherlock Holmes. Great URL, SherlockHolmesSociety.com.
That's great. Bum, 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 bum. For you Bernard Herrmann fans out there. You can also meet virtually on the 18th of December with the Honorable Ronald Adair Las Vegas Card Room. No idea whether they'll be playing cards virtually, but Carolyn Coleman is your contact there. You can get in touch with her and register for that meeting.
And on the 19th of December, in Cambridge, Massachusetts, one of our favorite gatherings, the Friends of Irene Adler are having their annual dinner meeting. They meet once a year, and that's December 19th in Cambridge, near Harvard Square.
Oh, Harvard Square.
George Schwartz.
Cambridge, our fair city. Harvard Square. Say hi to Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe while you're there, will you?
Don't try
our
like my
inspiration.
brother.
Yeah. Also on the 19th in St. Charles, Missouri, the Harpooners of the Sea Unicorn are hosting an in-person meeting. You can find them at harpooners.wordpress.com.
And on the 20th of December, hey, it's getting close to Christmas. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Afghanistan Perceivers are having their Blue Carbuncle Holiday Celebration. Brian Wilson can tell you more at tulsa-sherlock.org.
And the next day, on the 21st, in Seattle, Washington, the Sound of the Baskervilles. They're going to be meeting for their December meeting in person. You can find them at soundofthebaskervilles.com.
And the same day, the 21st of December, Madison, Wisconsin, the Notorious Canary Trainers are meeting. Glenn Link can tell you more at comicsworthreading.com/canary trainers.
And finally, skipping over Christmas Day and landing on, it's Blue Carbuncle Day, the 27th of December. In Schiller Park, Illinois, Tourists International are having their dinner meeting. John Schimberg is your contact. You can find them at touristinternational.org. It's a great group. We actually had some representatives from the tourists come and join us for the Amateur Mendicant Society over the weekend, and I was lucky enough to be able to speak at their event in September. Highly recommended if you are in the Chicago area. Well, folks, that wraps it up for December. Plenty going on, certainly. But if you would like to submit your group's information to the Sherlockian Calendar, just check out SherlockianCalendar.com and see Ron Fish's contact information. Of course, you know our friends at MX Publishing can keep you entertained and informed every day of the year simply by virtue of reading the wonderful books that they have available at mxpublishing.com. But did you know that they can also keep you entertained every day of the year with calendars? The Sherlock Holmes Illustrated Page-a-Day calendar is something that we've been supporting and enjoying for a few years now. Every page has a different canonical quote or a historical occurrence accompanied by an illustration. And there are also 4 Sherlock Holmes Advent calendars. The Mr. Holmes Advent calendar with 24 solve-it-yourself Christmas crimes. There are 4 volumes there, and you can have your choice of any of the 4. Mix and match if you wish. I think there is a discount if you buy more than one. And as we know, every December, Advent rolls around again, so you can use and reuse these calendars to your heart's content. Check out the calendar options at MX Publishing, along with all of their latest books and audio recordings. There's so much for a Sherlock Holmes fan to enjoy on mxpublishing.com. Margie Deck lives in the Pacific Northwest, where she's at work on a new collection of Gothic stories. Belanger Books published 2 of her previous collections in December 2023, The Genius of the Place, original Gothic tales inspired by Arthur Conan Doyle's works, published in the Strand magazine, and a collection of Sherlock Holmes adventures with remarkable cunning. She's the editor of the recently published anthology from Belanger Books, Sherlock Holmes Into the Fire. She has twice earned Doylean honors in fiction and poetry from the ACD Society, in January 2023 for the short story Whitney's Reflection, and in January 2025 for The Genius of the Place. She's co-editor with Nancy Holder of Sherlock Holmes Baking Street, an anthology fundraiser on behalf of the Beacon Society. She's also co-editor with Nancy Holder of the ACD Society's The Terror of Blue John Gap manuscript annotation project. Her short stories and essays have been published by the Strand magazine, Sherlock Holmes magazine, Belanger Books, Wildside Press, and others. She's been a member of the Sound of the Baskervilles, a science society in Seattle, for over 2 decades, as well as various other Sherlockian organizations. Margie Deck, welcome to I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere.
Well, thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, let's start where we start with everyone and ask you how you first got started with Sherlock Holmes.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I always go too long on stories, so if I do, just wave at me or something. High school, way back in the day, read the Red-Headed League, of course, in high school, was intrigued as part of a literature class. I was aware of Holmes for the afternoon late movies with Rathbone and Bruce. They would show them on Saturday night or whatever. Didn't pay much attention until Granada. That was basically what did it for me. Watched them and watched them and watched them. Of course, that was when you had to watch on PBS on Friday night or whatever. So I was in a used bookstore in the hill country of Texas, and I came across a Baring Gould double volume in one, that big fat one, for half price. It's like, oh, wonder what this is. So I took it home, and it was just like opening a world to me that I did not know existed. And so I had read so many things, but somehow I had missed Doyle. And so I started reading Baring Gould, and I was so entranced with the language that I found the annotations distracting. So I put Baring Gould down, went and rummaged through my bookshelves, and there was a complete Arthur Conan Doyle on the shelf. So pulled it down, started reading Arthur Conan Doyle Holmes, I should say. Of course, not all of Doyle wouldn't fit in one book, but anyway. And so I just read it through in a week, and then I went back and read Baring Gould through in a couple of weeks. And internet was kind of newish at that point, and I got online and I found Welcome Holmes and the wonderful Jim Hawkins, and so sort of just, and then we moved to Seattle area, and there was a very active group here, and I was able to join one, and there I am. piece by piece, year by year, as you know how it works, it just
Yeah.
becomes more and more part of your life. But I was just completely entranced when I read A Study in Scarlet.
And you mentioned hill country. For
Mhm.
those who aren't familiar with the U.S. geography, that refers to which state?
Okay, the Texas Hill Country, which state in Texas? There are 5 parts of Texas, really. It's right mid-center. I would say it's northwest, northeast of Austin, in that area of Texas. That's the mountainous part where there are some beautiful hills. Of course, now that I live in the Pacific Northwest, it's like those are not mountains, but still, it's a beautiful part of Texas, and it was
How
fun.
quaint. Yeah.
Yes. I will
So
hear for some Texans like Steve Mason when this is over. You wait.
Well, we're on good terms with the Texas Sherlockians.
Okay, good.
So,
Whew.
did you find any of those Texas Sherlockian organizations or people before you departed for the Pacific Northwest?
I actually did not. When there was nothing. Well, at the time I lived out in West Texas with small population, a little tiny town. I didn't know there was anything or anybody. And then when I moved to San Antonio, there was not a local group. There was one in Austin, but you can appreciate traveling from San Antonio to Austin traffic to try to go to it. You understand. So no, it was not until I actually moved to the northwest that I was able to make that come together. And I was fortunate enough that it was the Sound of the Baskervilles, which has been a long-term group and good leadership and fun people, and it was just amazing.
That's great. I would be remiss if I didn't mention this, but you mentioned San Antonio. We did an interview, I guess it was episode 248, called The Sherlock Home, which is an Airbnb in San Antonio that the owners have kind of fixed up as Sherlock-ish. It's not exact, but there's a lot of things that they have inside, and they create kind of a locked room mystery that attendees can participate in. So if you're ever in San Antonio, Margie, again,
that's right. I do still have friends there, so
you can visit the Sherlock Home.
I will. Actually, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
I have been gone from there for 20 years now, so I'm out of touch with what's there.
So, Margie, after your introduction to Sherlock Holmes, how did you get, or when did you get interested in some of Conan Doyle's other writings?
Actually, not until the pandemic. To be honest with you, we were home, and I read a lot, and but I had not read much other Doyle. And I've had a 2-person book club since 2018 with the marvelous BSI bookman and artist Jeff Decker. And we have read a zillion books together. And so we read the Oxford World's Classic Gothic Doyle together. And it just made my brain go poof. Okay, now I've got to go read a bunch of other stuff. And so it was kind of fun. It just opened up a whole new world to me. And then we read A Life in Letters and Teller of Tales together, and discussed so many different things. And that's kind of how I fell off into that part of Doyle.
Oh, well, that's
Somebody's
wonderful.
Not
I'm
me.
sorry, my phone is ringing.
So when you had that opportunity, Margie, to read more Doyle, were there any particular genres of his work? I mean, he did historical fiction. He did obviously tales of the macabre and Gothic. Mm-hmm. He has poetry. He has plays. What began to appeal to you as you saw these different sides of Doyle come out?
Really, the Gothic. That's where I just fell in love with what he did with that. And then I went on to read some of his contemporaries who were writing Gothic, and I just had a lot of fun with that. And I've kind of just become fixated, to be honest with you, with that kind of writing in that period of time. His other piece that I really, really love is the Stark Munro letters. I spend a lot of time in that. I've read it 3 times. I find a lot of inspiration for the Gothic writing from Stark Munro, which seems kind of weird, but that's true. I take a lot of inspiration for Gothic writing from poetry. So, Stark Munro is one of my favorite books.
Wow. So your introduction to Gothic fiction was from Conan Doyle?
Yes.
So you hadn't read...
I had read some Poe, of course, but as far as that era, no. When I read scary things and horror things when I'm growing up, it was Stephen King.
Yeah.
And so I went back and discovered all this wonderful stuff that was sitting there that I didn't know enough about. And I've just fallen off into it. And that's where I read now. I kind of live in that time period, and I'm clueless about what's kind of happening in the current world, but that's okay. Current world's fine. It'll get on without me.
Oh, no.
It's actually preferable.
Let me fill you in on the current world.
Please don't.
That's a whole other show.
Everything is going really well.
Okay.
So
compared to the Gothic, sure.
Yeah.
You don't need to worry about it.
Oh, my gosh.
Don't bother looking at those newspapers. They'll confuse
I read the funnies. I read the agony column and the funny papers. I figured that is good enough. And I was also fortunate enough in this whole process to meet the absolutely brilliant and wonderful, and I don't have enough adjectives for, Nancy Holder, who, fortunately for my life, moved to my area and joined our Scion Society. And all of a sudden, here was this woman, this wonderful Sherlockian and horror writer and Gothic expert and friend of mine. And so it's just between Nancy Holder and Jeff Decker, I just have this master class in how to read and write and think about literature. Right hand, left hand. I can't do it without them.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So I'm interested. I mean, you came first to Sherlock Holmes and then to Conan Doyle's Gothic writing. So when you began thinking about this collection that we're currently going to be talking with you about, what seemed to you to be were there key Gothic tropes that you thought Conan Doyle was employing? And were they the same kind of elements, atmosphere and setting and an isolated setting and the supernatural that like a modern author would focus on? What was going on
there? To a point, some of the stories in Doyle's Round the Fire collection, of course, have those things. But some of them probably iffy as being a true Gothic story. They sort of just put them together, but that's all right. It's all right. I still love them. They're just, like the one about the unicorn. We're pushing it a little bit, but I was fascinated by that collection mostly because of the leather funnel. And the reason I'm so fascinated with that story is because Doyle said that that's the closest to literature he thought he ever got. And that has kind of stuck in my head when we're talking about a man dreaming about watching a woman being poisoned and tortured. It's like, that's as close as you got to literature. So what did he write in that story that struck him that way? And so I spent a lot of time thinking about it. And so I read several of those stories over and over and over. And so one of the best definitions I ever read for Gothic writing, and I keep it up on my wall, is that you want your story to have so that the character has an insidious influence on their soul and their sanity.
Insidious influence.
And on their soul and their sanity. So in Gothic, I'm very interested in what's happening in the head as much as I'm interested in the crazy person trapped in the attic, because the bulk of the Gothic business happens in your head. And that's kind of what Doyle captured with the leather funnel and the silver mirror, because the silver mirror is not in this collection, but he kind of captured that what happens in your head that is Gothic, right? And so, and then William James had a great definition of the Gothic, and he talks about how the experiences have to be ineffable, and that the person it happens to generally has a feeling of passivity. They're just, things are happening to them, and they're sort of passively taking this in, and they're trying to think about it, and it's having all this influence on them. And so, of course, ineffable, that word always sticks with us because it means something to us. So yeah. And so, of course, you have, the confined spaces and the whatnot, which are important. Certainly sealed room falls into that. But I like to think about what people are thinking and what's happening inside them that doesn't necessarily make sense, and they're trying to think it through, and they need a little Sherlock Holmes. So
Yeah.
Did you think that interior monologue, that what's happening inside them, as you just said it, do you think that's connected to his thinking that this is as close as he got to literature? Because he seldom presented that sort of internal experience elsewhere. Is that
possibly? I don't know. And he could have just been in a snit and was writing the letter because he was writing to the editor at the Strand, and he was upset about some of the way they had arranged some things. But it obviously he had thought about it. He had thought about it a lot because he wanted to write literature, which I want to read and write literature. And I don't want to sound like a snob. I like to read everything. I read constantly. I read the back of shampoo bottles, but I'm just kind of fascinated by the idea of what is literature and what is Gothic and how do you marry them together and still have a fun story. Because the nice thing about Doyle is that 99% of the time he gives you a fun story. When you finish reading it, you got that little woohoo, that good writing does for you.
Mm. Well, when we think about, being in someone's head and exploring their soul and their sanity, as you mentioned, so much of this comes from dwelling on a position of uncertainty, where there's something happening around them that they can't quite explain, they can't figure out. There's a mystery of sorts to be solved,
yes.
Something to be unraveled. So it seems natural that, enter Sherlock Holmes. And, this idea of Sherlock Holmes into the fire, where you've combined Sherlock Holmes with Doyle's Round the Fire stories. And I want you to talk about the structure of the book as well. But talk to us about how you began to weave these two separate yet connected ideas together for this project.
Oh, well, that's easy. Let's just go to Dr. Mark Jones, who originally had the idea for this book. He was having a chat ages ago. We were at the time there was a very robust Twitter community, and we used to talk about Holmes and Doyle and whatnot. And he mentioned that he had always wanted to do a book, and so I thought, oh, well, that sounds like a lot of fun. So I immediately wrote to him and said, we need to do this book. And he said, yes, we need to do this book. He said, let's get Nancy Holder and all three of us, and we'll do this book. And so we were all excited about it, and we could not make schedules work. And so at the time that Mark could do it, Nancy and I couldn't, you know how it is. And so it kept getting shelved, and things happened. And I had finished 2 story collections, and I was kind of at a down spot. So I wrote to Mark and Nancy and said, do you want to do this now? And because we're 3 or 4 years on from the original conversation at that point. And neither one could. And Mark said, why don't you just do it? And so I said, well, okay, I'll try. And so I sat down and really thought about it. Derek Belanger had been involved in the original conversation 4 years before. So I sat down and wrote out a little thing for him and said, this is kind of what I'm seeing. I wanted it to be a celebration of Doyle's Round the Fire stories. I wanted it to be true to traditional Sherlock Holmes. And then so we have to marry up the weirdo stuff that's in some of these stories with traditional Sherlock Holmes. And so our goal was to put those together and to be true to a Gothic style, but still have fun. And I think that we made it. Did I answer the question? Sorry, I tend to wander off. Okay.
No, certainly.
But that gets us sort of to the authors that participate in this. I'm curious, what sort of editorial brief did you give them? Was there any instruction like, transplant the plot or what sort of direction did you give people?
Well, okay, let me think. Because something happened without being planned that was magical. And so when we first started talking about it, the questions were, well, are we simply going to rewrite these stories as a Sherlock Holmes story? And some of them did not lend themselves to that, really. So basically, how did I word it? So I wanted you for Sherlock Holmes to make sense of what happened. So you could either write it where he's there as part of the original action, or you could write as something where he explains what happened after the fact. How do you want to do this? And without planning, we basically ended up half and half. Half of the people put Holmes directly into the action, and half of us wrote sequels. And I had decided from the start to do the book in the same order that Doyle's Round the Fire book was done. And so I thought, okay, this is going to be, I don't know what I'm going to get. And we have a fixed order. I may regret this. And as it turned out, I didn't regret it at all. It worked out really well. We have just a really nice back and forth between sequels and current action, and it flows well. Whoever put Doyle's original story order together way back in the day really did a great job. It feels really good as you read through the stories.
That's fascinating. I love it when a plan comes together like that.
Me too, especially when, part of it, you're just making a decision to force yourself to be to a strict pattern is kind of scary.
Yeah. Well, and your job as editor, right, is to make sure all of that flows together and that each contributor is certainly getting what they want out of it as well. What's interesting to me is we look at the 17 stories that are part of Conan Doyle's original Round the Fire stories. Mm-hmm. 2 of them we have actually discussed on Trifles recently. 2 are part of the Apocrypha of Sherlock Holmes, the story of the Lost Special and the Man with the Watches. And those are, and I'm thinking through this, those actually did not explicitly include Sherlock Holmes, but they either could include Sherlock Holmes either by reference in one of them, mm-hmm. or, as you say, an explanation afterwards as to how this happened. So mm-hmm. Those are natural. But some of these other stories, what were some of the challenges that you saw in going into developing these ideas?
Well, I think the main thing was we have to stay logical. And so we can't have big plot holes, and we can't just, if something is difficult to explain, like our poor fellow that got stuck with the unicorn story, is that you've got to come up with some logical way, because this is a Sherlock Holmes story. So you have to come up with some logical way for Holmes to investigate. Now, whether Holmes has an answer, who knows? Because some things we don't have answers to. Things happen in this planet that, in our experiences, that we don't have explanations for. And that's fine. And I think he's okay with that too, Holmes is, if he has a way to investigate it and make the decision that he can't have a clear answer. And so that's something that I was very always thinking about when I was reading the work as it came in. Okay, why? Why did Holmes do this? Why did he do that? And how do we know this? We can't just assume something. So we've got to be clear on the steps that he took. He may not tell us until the end, but Holmes always explains what he did more or less. And so I wanted all of that to be there.
See, that's really interesting. I mean, the Gothic, all these stories, there's, as you've said this already, are sort of based on mystery and dread and this sense of the unknowable. Is there anything lost when you have a rationalist like Sherlock Holmes who steps in to sort of figure out what happened?
I don't think so. I don't think so, because since we can't think that way, I think that this part of us that's struggling to understand is so grateful for it. And then, especially when it turns out to be kind of simple, which we always love, it's like, oh, okay, now I get it.
Yeah.
Now I get it. So now I can feel safe again, because that's what it's all about, is feeling like you have no control and not understanding.
Yeah.
So Holmes gives you that.
Yeah. So, but then that's the other side of it then. So what do you think is gained? What do you think is gained when, you have a character like Sherlock Holmes looking at these kinds of looking at these kinds of events and things? Is there anything that's gained? Do the original elements get strengthened or weakened or?
Oh, okay. Oh, I think that it gets changed a little, but I would say it makes it stronger in that it gives you another way to think about everything. Especially if you're frightened of something, now it gives you a different way to think about it. You might still be a little scared or a lot scared, but it gives you a different path. I mean, we love the idea of, oh, okay, wait a minute, now I get it. Now I get it. Okay. And that's what it gives you, is that sense of, oh, I'm the human and I know what's going on again.
Yeah.
That feeling that you want.
What about Watson? I mean, does Watson sort of help bridge the gap here between the Gothic atmosphere and Holmes's logic, or is it helpful to have a narrator like Watson involved in this?
I think it's always helpful to have a narrator like Watson involved, because he's often a very neutral party, and he observes too, and he says things that make sense to us who are trying to keep up with Holmes. So he's like our buddy. It's like we're not going to go down in the basement without him, because he's our teddy bear. Let's go. So yeah, I don't think that was a very good answer. I'm sorry, but that's just kind of how I feel about Watson. He is our security blanket. Let's take it and go. So.
Oh no, I think it's a great answer. I mean, he's supposed to be, to Holmes, he's the reliable comrade, and happily for Holmes, he's not too bright. He's not a dim
bright
bulb.
Enough, but right,
yeah. No, it's a good answer.
Yeah.
Lisa Fabre wrote a story, a follow-up to the Lost Special, and she has Holmes use Watson as a pawn a bit to solve some of the mystery around a sequel to that event and explain what happened. And when I first read it, I was kind of uncomfortable. It's like, we're using Watson. Then I thought, that makes perfect sense. This is Gothic, and we're all going to get uncomfortable, so it's okay. It's okay to use Watson.
And it's not the first time
one.
Holmes has used Watson as a pawn in his machination, so that makes sense.
Yeah. It does. I was like, oh.
So the book, I should say the books, are divided into 2 volumes, because not only do we have the original Conan Doyle stories, but we have 17 other stories that come along. So obviously it would have been a huge book if you had included it in one. So there's volume 1 and volume 2. But it left me thinking, in addition to Round the Fire, Conan Doyle wrote a number of other stories that were similarly macabre, Gothic, outre, to use some of Holmes's terminologies. And I'm thinking of things like Lot 249 or The Terror of Blue John Gap or The Horror of the Heights. What do you think the future holds of connecting Holmes with some of those other Conan Doyle stories? Do you think there's anything there?
Oh, sure. I think it would be great fun to do. I'm not in a position to do it right now. I've kind of gone off on a project, but I would love to see it. I would love to see it just because people are so clever. That's what I kept thinking when the stories would come in and I would start reading and go, how are you so clever that you put this together? Some I almost don't want to touch, like the Captain of the Pole Star. It's just so beautiful like it is and trapped in the ice, and that's where it needs to stay in my mind, but that's just me. But I think you could have a lot of fun with it. Now, Charles Prepelec had wanted to do a work like this for a long time, and he told me that when he had been thinking about doing it, he was going to cherry pick. So maybe we could, give him a poke and see if we could get him to do some cherry picking and give us a book, but I don't know. So
I like
but
that.
Yeah, I think it would be quite fun. It would, and I think there is people who would enjoy reading it. I've heard from them, so I think so.
Yeah. Now, Charles joined us on a couple of episodes before, on episode 208, to talk about his collection of Strand magazines. And all the way back on episode 57, when we had a Sherlockian Halloween, when we were talking about the spooky and Gothic. So we'll put links to those episodes in the show as well. So Margie, as you think about either stories that are in the collection here or Conan Doyle stories that are still out there, what's a favorite that you have where Sherlock Holmes was connected or could be connected?
That was connected from this list?
One, like, is there a favorite round the fire story of Conan Doyle's that you have from his collection, or are there other stories out there, his Gothic tales, that you think that are favorites of yours that you think could be turned into something like this?
Well, nothing readily comes to mind because, Blue John Gap, obviously, you could have Holmes go investigate. I spend some time with that story a lot for the Arthur Conan Doyle Society's annotation project. So, actually, and Matt Hall, the lovely Matt Hall, wrote a short essay explaining how Holmes actually did investigate the terror of Blue John Gap, and it's currently available on the Arthur Conan Doyle Society website under our Blue John Gap project. I don't have access to my electronics right this second to tell you exactly which page it's on, but I could find it. We're annotating that manuscript page by page, and we had asked Matt if he would write us an essay about how Sherlock Holmes would investigate, and he come back and said, "Well, he thinks he did," and he told us all about it, and it's a thing of beauty. It's so much fun to read. So I encourage you to go over to the Blue John Gap project and read that. So yes, there are some things out there. I love that story. Of course, Leather Funnel is in my collection now in the Round the Fire, and I was fortunate enough to get to write that story, so it meant a lot to me. I actually did not plan to. Someone else had claimed that one right away, and unfortunately, they had to drop out. And so I was like, okay, there's just something that says I'm supposed to do this, and because I love it so much. But and Silver Mirror means an awful lot to me. I love that story. The very first Gothic piece I wrote was a riff on the Silver Mirror. I had a young man who thinks Conan Doyle was talking about him when he was writing about Isa Whitney, and so he decides that he can go around recreating things that Doyle wrote about, and he gets off into this drug-fueled mess with the Silver Mirror. And that's when I won my first Doyle Honors Award, was for that story. So Silver Mirror has a good place in my heart too.
This sort of calls to mind the question: how long did all this take? I mean, this is not the easiest thing in the world to produce 2 volumes of these stories that reprint the Conan Doyle tale and then present a modern author next to it. I mean, selecting the authors, getting the stories, doing the editing. What? How many? This didn't happen in a weekend here.
No, about 18 months, 19 months, something like that, from the time that I sent the first invitations out. Of course, I had thought about it for quite some time because we had been talking about it over a period of time. But as far as actually putting something to paper, probably starting in February of whatever year that was, and finishing in May of this year. So February of 24 through May of 2025, that was basically what I did. I was in the fire. So it was just lots and lots and lots of time. And of course, building the manuscripts for the books took a little while because we had 3 volumes actually. So we have the 2-volume set that has all the original Doyle pieces in there to go with the new piece, right? And then we have a standalone that is just the new 17 stories that's available in paperback. So 3 manuscripts, and they're all alike, but they're all different in their own way. Especially, I went to pagination hell, so to say. But I learned a lot. I learned a lot about how to do things and how not to do things. And I have to say that my bacon was saved by, I don't have enough adjectives for Carla Coop either, but the amazing Carla Coop, who of course is a copy editor extraordinaire, read the manuscript for me and made comments. And oh my gosh, what a gift that was. She just taught me so much, and it was great. It helped me see that my editorial decisions were working well, if that makes sense, because the bulk of her questions and comments were on copy editing. And so our style and our theme and our feel for the book came together like I hoped it would. So it was just a matter of getting everything to stand up straight and be looking well.
That's good. That's great to hear what Sherlockians helping Sherlockians,
Oh, she just volunteered. It's like, yeah. I just can't sing her praises enough.
Yeah. Well, it paid off in this collection, Sherlock Holmes Into the Fire. If folks would like to check it out, we'll have a link to Belanger Books and to Amazon, where you can purchase them in any format, in Kindle, in paperback, in hardbound. It is there for your delight. Margie, what else are you working on right now that we can look forward to in our reading future?
Well, if it comes together, I'm working on a book called In the Dim Light. That's the title. And it's Gothic tales inspired by Sherlock Holmes. So what I'm trying to do is, I've kind of fascinated by the idea of people who interacted with Sherlock Holmes. How did it change their life? How did it change the way they think? How did it change for good or bad going forward, friend or foe? So I want to take characters that Sherlock Holmes interacted with and put them in situations where things could be weird. And hopefully we will see how Holmes affected them and what the influence was.
That's fascinating.
I just finished one. It's with the gentleman from the Twisted Lip, and we're 18 years on. And so, because Neville St. Clair, Holmes affected him, but not truly in a negative way. I mean, he had to stop doing what he was doing, which was a major thing, right? So this man had to find a whole new way of running his life. So I was very kind of fascinated with the idea of, well, what happened after that? And so I have taken him and put him in a position where he's had some strange things happening to him. And so he's trying very hard to think like Sherlock Holmes, because he talks about how, okay, this is how Holmes got me, how he found me and sorted things out. So how can I think like him? And he's trying to do these things, and we'll see what happens to him. Bless him. He's kind of in a tough spot at the moment, but
Yeah.
I think, as with Gothic, things are not always all right in the end, but we'll see, because I really like him. So I want to help him out. There's a quote, it came from a quote from The Empty House, was where this whole book idea came from. So Holmes and Watson are in the empty house, and Watson's looking across at the bust, right? And there's this part where he says, he drew in his breath with a shrill, excited intake. In the dim light, I saw his head thrown forward, his whole attitude rigid with attention. So he's talking about Holmes. We're just focused on this here. And he said, those two men might still be crouching in the doorway, but I could no longer see them. All was still and dark, save only that brilliant yellow screen in front of us with the black figure outlined upon the center. So the focus of this book is, what did that black figure outlined upon the center mean to these people? And so we'll see what happens.
That's a fascinating concept. I really like that. Yeah. I can't wait to hear what happened to Hilton Cubitt.
Okay. So,
inside joke, folks. If you don't know, you go read The Dancing Men. You'll find out.
The Dancing Men, yes.
Well, this is fantastic. We'll have to have you back on to talk about that project when it sees the light of day. Well, not the dim light of day, but the full light of day.
Let's hope it's a bright light once it's finally all done. We shall see how it comes together. But this first one was fun. I don't want to say too much, but it's Anyway, it was good fun, and so we'll see what happens. I will give it my best shot.
Yeah. Well, Margie Deck, thank you so much for sharing your passion and sharing your project with us here on I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere.
Well, thank you for having me. It was delightful. I'll be back.
Yeah. It's a brilliant idea, and I think I'm just really surprised and delighted by the whole conversation and by the work. You know, I think it's also a great intro, and I was very struck by Margie's experience of encountering Gothic through Conan Doyle. So if any of our listeners, have never really particularly cared for Gothic literature or read deeply about it, I think this could be a really terrific introduction for them. And it sure is a labor of love. I'm just very impressed by the approach and by the community of people who participated, and how she got all this done in 18 months is just remarkable. It's really a fascinating and interesting and valuable project here.
Yeah, it really is incredible. And for folks who are fixed in the Sherlockian world and haven't really explored a lot of Arthur Conan Doyle, what a great avenue to get there. This bridging from Sherlock Holmes to these Gothic tales. Conan Doyle, if you look through any of his other collections of short stories, he has fascinating stories to tell, and he is certainly not just relegated to Sherlock Holmes. And if this is your gateway to discovering more Conan Doyle, more of what he had to offer, particularly through the lens of the Gothic, then have at it. But as Margie said, things like the Stark Munro letters and, even the White Company, there's so much to explore. And we hope that these kinds of projects continue to surface throughout the future. All right. Well, once again, our friend Madeline Quinones is back at it. She's been our correspondent now this is her 30th entry in the series called A Chance of Listening, where Madeline gives us a sense as to what other Sherlock Holmes-related podcasts are out there. I think the series is now about twice as long as Madeline had prepared, as she's been discovering more along the way, and people have been feeding her information. So let's get right to it, shall we? It's A Chance of Listening with your correspondent, Madeline Quinones.
Hello, everyone. I'm Madeline Quinones, and today I'm here to talk about a unique spin on the canon, a podcast hosted by Dr. Watson himself. That's right, it's Sherlock & Co. Sherlock & Co. is an adaptation in the present day, with John Watson recording the cases that Sherlock Holmes investigates. It's also a multimedia experience. You can follow Watson on social media, and if you join the show's Patreon, you can access the Discord where John and Sherlock sometimes drop in and interact with the fans. There are mailbag episodes on Patreon, although much fewer and further between now than there used to be, where John, Sherlock, and Mariana, we'll get to her in a minute, will answer fans' questions. And of course, there are the shoutouts to the listeners, most of whom are very real and one who was very disturbing. That's another thing we'll circle back to. The show takes each story in the canon and breaks it down into a set of episodes, rather like an old Doctor Who serial. The short stories usually take 2, 3, or 4 episodes to tell. The novels are being adapted as 10-episode stories, which didn't always work for the Sign of Four, but is so far working really well for the Hound of the Baskervilles. Plus, Joel Emery made it his mission early on to adapt the stories that haven't been adapted as much. After 2 years of the show running non-stop, the team has adapted almost all of the casebook, plus several of the stories that the Granada series never got around to. So Joel's been true to his word. Those are the more technical details. Now let's talk about the story. Dr. John Watson, born in 1989, served in Afghanistan, but after the War on Terror, he volunteered as a medic in Ukraine, and that's where he was wounded. When he first meets Sherlock Holmes, he's trying to start a podcast about veterans, but soon shifts to recording the wild adventure he finds himself on, none other than the adventure of the illustrious client. At the end of the story, Sherlock and John hire a secretary, a woman who had previously been a property manager from Hudson's, which owns 221 Baker Street. This is Mariana Emechuzura from Spain, although for the longest time, Sherlock confuses her name as being Mrs. Hudson. This is the beginning of the Sherlock & Co. company, with Sherlock investigating cases, John podcasting about them, and Mariana handling the business side of things. Sherlock is on the autism spectrum in this universe, and he really doesn't know how to live with other people at the beginning. But John and Mariana are always supportive of him, and over time, he learns a lot from them, and they learn a lot from him, and from each other. At the start of the show, the most unique thing about it would have been that it's a modern adaptation in podcast format. There's nothing else like it as far as Sherlockian shows go. But nowadays, I'd argue that Mariana herself is one of the most unique things about the show. It took a couple of months, but then she starts to be more and more present and more involved in the cases. The dynamic on Baker Street is not that Sherlock and John are best friends and Mariana is in the background. They're a trio. They're all best friends with each other, and it is one of my favorite things about the show. In terms of recurring characters, we also have Archie, John's bulldog, Stamford, who starts out kind of obnoxious but grows into a lovable character, Carol Watson, John's mother, Detective Inspector Tom Gregson, who gets delightfully and justifiably fed up with the team often, and after nearly a year and a half of the show teasing her existence, Dame Gwendolyn Lestrade, Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police Service, finally shows up in the Norwood Builder. Gwen was worth the wait. She's fantastic. Nowadays, Mycroft is the one whose existence is being teased. He hasn't shown up yet. And Professor Moriarty has entered the chat! Literally, the first time he was mentioned by name was in a shout-out. And it turns out that he's an avid listener of the show. that's not terrifying at all. But he didn't really start playing into the stories until early this year, but not under his name yet. Rather, he's referred to as the Spider. He's in the shadows as he's supposed to be, and Sherlock hasn't pinpointed him yet. And I think that's really good serialized storytelling. Speaking of which, the first season is easier to get into than the second. In the first year of the show, the serials stand alone more, whereas after the Sign of Four, they start to be more connected. So let's get into highlights. If you haven't heard the show at all, or maybe heard the first episode and weren't sure about continuing, I would start you off with The Noble Bachelor, episodes 5 and 6. It's a light, fun two-parter. This show can swing between making you laugh and ripping your heart out. So, start with a fun one. For an example of a story that was really faithfully adapted to the present day, I'd go with Silver Blaze, episodes 28 through 31, their first four-parter. For a story that's an example of just how good the show can get, how well it can draw out the characters, either Gloria Scott, episodes 19 and 20, or Retired Colorman, episodes 26 and 27. They're the first two cases that Mariana is actively involved in, which itself is special, and the character work in both is excellent. Chef's kiss. But all of these are Season 1 stories. The thing is, if you're going to dive into Season 2, you are going to hit spoilers for the Sign of Four sooner or later. Yes, that's actually important. Trust me, if you don't already know, you can't guess it. But if you don't mind that, then there's Wisteria Lodge, episodes 72 through 74, which is the first time that Moriarty factors into a story in a major way, still without actually being named or appearing in person, per se. Or Charles Augustus Milverton, episodes 82 through 84, which is intense and fully matches BBC Sherlock's Charles Augustus Magnuson for the creep factor. Now, the Milverton serial also dovetails right into the next serial, so there is that, but still, it's very good. Clearly, I could talk about this show for a full podcast episode, and I actually do that regularly on the Watsonian Weekly. But, there's a lot of ground to cover. And right now, the show is in the process of airing The Hound of the Baskervilles. And so far, it is excellent. And I'm just hoping that they don't kill off anybody who isn't meant to be killed off, because I'm maybe a little bit scared right now. Which I would argue is good storytelling right there. And that is where you're going to find me for the next few weeks, listening to the rest of The Hound. The game's afoot.
Oh, what a delight. I mean, Sherlock & Co., I haven't necessarily listened consistently. It's been on and off. But, boy, have I enjoyed that show ever since it came out. And, of course, it's a good time to remind folks that, as we said, as Madeline said, we had Joel on and Harry Atwell on episodes 275 and 300 here on I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere. So nice tie-in with our podcasting friends there.
Yes, absolutely. Very talented folks. Sound great.
If only we had the production prowess of Goalhanger behind us the way they do, boy, we'd be unstoppable.
Yeah. Thank goodness somebody would be running after us with a stopper.
Oh, those jaunty strings can mean only one thing. That's right. It's time to put your brain to work for Canonical Couplet, the quiz program where we give you 2 lines of poetry and ask you to discern which Sherlock Holmes story we are talking about. It's tough. Sometimes it's a challenge. I mean, heck, we don't even know what the answers are sometimes. Well, no. I shouldn't say we. I should say Bert doesn't even know what the answers are sometimes. But we're going to put him to the test just the same. Mm-hmm. The last time we were around this place, we gave you this clue. A post from Pondicherry and another from Dundee took a client's life by villains dead upon the sea. Bert, do you know which Sherlock Holmes story we are talking about?
Yeah, of course. That's the case that began when Watson dined with Holmes, and the chef mistakenly served their poultry entree without stuffing. Yeah, it's the case Watson called The Adventure of the Empty Grouse.
There's something empty around here, that's for sure. Oh, that's a good one.
Good.
Sadly, not true.
Oh, no.
Well, our good pal Eric Deckers has once again come to our rescue. And I'm going to do my best because he starts off with a Russian phrase. Evrika, I've got it. It's the sad story where one of Holmes's clients, plus his uncle, his father, and two previously unmentioned men were all killed by a lone time-traveling assassin named Billy Pilgrim, who dispatched his victims with beef processing equipment. It's the story Watson called The Slaughterhouse 5 Orange Pips. Except I think I'm confusing Arthur Conan Doyle with Kurt Vonnegut. Again, it's more likely to be the 5 Orange Pips. Yes, Eric.
Well,
that is correct. Yes.
That's easy. They both had mustaches. I do that all the time.
Oh, boy. Well, we will put our prize wheel to the test because we've had a number of people enter this time around. So we'll bring the prize wheel out and give it a big spin. Going around and around and coming to land on number 21. I love that. Lucky number 21. And that looks like it is Mauricio Dieter. Hey, Mauricio, congratulations. I think this is the first time we have had a winner from Brazil. That is encouraging indeed that we're making our way over to Brazil. I think we've been there for a while. We haven't had any entries on the canonical couple. Well, Mauricio, we will get a copy of what was last time's prize?
Bruce Harris.
Copy of Bruce Harris's book to you. Fantastic. Excellent. Well, we will be in touch with that. And now, of course, we have a chance for folks to win a copy of Margie Deck's book. So get your pencils and paper ready. Here is the clue. An ugly long hair, fond of creosote, led to the Thames and a steam-powered boat. If you know the answer to this episode's canonical couplet, put it in an email addressed to comment@ihearofsherlock.com with canonical couplet in the subject line. If you are among all of the correct answers and we choose your name at random, you'll win. Good luck. We did it.
Yay!
We did it. Wow. It's nice to be wrapping up October.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the
You
time
got your costume ready for Halloween?
Yes, I'm going as the Invisible Man. I won't be at home. No, we've got the porch all set up, with viewing display for the mayhem that happens around the neighborhood here. Front row seats. So we will tuck in. We'll have our adult beverages, and we'll be giving away scads of candy.
Well, good.
Yeah. Stay tuned for that. So the next time that I see you, I guess you'll be stuffed full of candy yourself.
Oh, probably, yeah. Or something.
Or something.
Hot air usually.
Something, well, like you'll be like the grouse.
Oh,
You'll
right.
be the empty grouse.
The empty grouse. Just complaining.
Superb. Well, until that happens, next time, I am the always candied Scott Monty.
And even after it happens, I'm the Splenda enriched Bert Wolder.
And together we say, the games of foot.
The games of foot.
You know, I'm afraid that in the pleasure of this conversation, I am neglecting business of importance, which awaits me elsewhere.
Thank you for listening. Please be sure to join us again for the next episode of I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere, the first podcast dedicated to Sherlock Holmes.
Goodbye, and good luck, and believe me to be, my dear fellow, very sincerely yours, Sherlock Holmes.